President-elect Barack Obama's national security team is beginning to come into focus. Senator Hillary Clinton is expected to be nominated for Secretary of State, while retired Marine General James Jones will likely be named National Security Advisor. And sources tell NBC News that it's all but certain that current Secretary of Defense Robert Gates will stay on for at least a year. Gates supported the Iraq War and the surge, so why keep him on? Jon Soltz is the chairman and co-founder of VoteVets.org. He was a captain in the Army and served in Iraq during Operation Iraqi Freedom. He has also been an outspoken critic of the management of the war under the Bush administration. Jon, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
The question was asked today to President-elect Obama: why does keeping Secretary Gates on at the Pentagon represent change?
Well, I think we have to understand here is the pressures on the president-elect. He set this goal of getting troops out of Iraq within 16 months, so and drastically changing the mission there. So I think the larger question is why does Secretary Gates want to stay? And that's the question people should ask, and I think it really represents the problems the military communities had with the Bush administration. Secretary Gates was put in there basically by allies of President Bush's father, something that Dick Cheney hadn't even approved when he got there. So Gates does not have the problems with the uniformed military that Rumsfeld had from an attitude standpoint. So I think it says a lot that Gates wants to stay because, as Admiral Mullen, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said, they know what President-elect Obama wants to do, and they're willing to execute it.
He is, and the Iraqis are about to vote on tomorrow a status of forces agreement, which would allow troops there to stay for another 3 years. Barack Obama has promised they would be out in about 16 months from when he takes office. Would Secretary Gates, who was appointed by President Bush, carry out a plan by President-elect Obama that said bring those troops home more quickly? Absolutely,
he has to. I mean, the President of the United States is the Commander-in-Chief, and so that's the whole point here, is that the pressure's on the President-elect. Keeping Secretary Gates gives President-elect Obama a lot of coverage from the right. I mean, he was hammered throughout the campaign. He didn't have the experience, he didn't have the people around him, and yet he, the last 2 weeks of the campaign was endorsed by former Secretary of State and General Colin Powell, and now you're going to have the Secretary of Defense stay on and then execute his policy. It makes it seem like they're supporting the president-elect.
I mean, Jon, you have been, and your organization has been, one of the most critical voices out there.
We're proud of it.
Yeah, of Secretary Rumsfeld, of the way this war has been waged by the Bush administration, and now you're saying to me, we're happy with Secretary Gates. We're happy with Bush's choices, the Pentagon. Are those on the left that are whining about him, are they whining? Or are you guys caving into this new administration?
Look, I don't think anyone's caving in. I mean, I happen to love Chuck Hagel. I mean, he's been great to VoteVets. He was great on the GI Bill. He's been great on the war. Would I love to see Chuck Hagel? Absolutely. But I don't think having Secretary Gates stay on is the end of the world. He was not responsible for the problems at Abu Ghraib. He was not responsible for the problems at Walter Reed. He was not responsible for firing the Chief of Staff of the Army, General Shinseki, and having to get a retired Army general out of retirement to take the Chief of Staff job for the Army. This guy wasn't asked to resign by 6 retired generals like Rumsfeld was. He's just not Donald Rumsfeld. So I think before people, in a sense, get hyper about Secretary Gates, who is well respected as a bureaucrat, who has been a civil servant his whole career and was brought into that job for that purpose, it's up to President-elect Obama. If people want to hold someone accountable, they should hold the President-elect accountable, who's going to be the Commander-in-Chief. And I just think it's too early to tell what that's going to look like. If he holds his word, Gates is actually a huge advantage for him.
All right, Jon Soltz, great to have you on.
Thanks
so
for
much,
having me.
And happy Thanksgiving to you.
Yes, you too. Appreciate it.